Keep this in mind. Jehovah sees every time we turn on the computer, every time we look at a smartphone, and every immoral thought that we think. So if we fail to understand what remaining chaste means or what being chaste is, keep those points in mind. It's a good starting point. And again, when you do that as a young one, it makes your spiritual progress manifest to all in the congregation. It's a gift that you give them. It's an example to the loyal, faithful ones that are serving alongside you. And you help those that are looking for an example as well. Now, what I'd like to do is interview two brothers from the A-Leaf congregation. On my far right is Brother Addison Sawyer. Next to him is Brother Cody Oliveris. And we'd like to ask them both a question. And what we'd like to do is ask you what pressures you may have overcome or weaknesses, and so that you could become exemplary in your congregation. Brother Sawyer, we can start with you.
At a pretty young age, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. This was something, one of my first thoughts was, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? Somewhat of a self-centered attitude. And as a young kid, having to take an insulin shot every time you ate was not the ideal situation. And so that self-centered attitude was somewhat of a weakness for me. But thankfully, my parents got me started on a before then, a very regular reading of God's Word daily. And that, coupled along with reading yearbook experiences, helped me to see both biblical examples as well as modern-day examples of other ones that had been faithful to Jehovah and joyful despite difficult circumstances, many even much more difficult than the ones I faced. But this isn't to say that it wasn't without challenges. I did greatly appreciate the spiritual food. Spiritual food was a type of food I didn't even need an insulin shot for. And so I greatly relied on that. But it does come with its challenges. It's a disease I still have today. It's a lingering disease. And there will be some days where I'll wake up with low blood sugar and I won't even be able to have the energy to get myself out of the bed to get to the Meanford Field service. But thankfully, relying on Jehovah, and as well as the kindness of others in the congregation, such as Brother Oliveris, who continue to put up with me in situations like that, really helped me out. And so instead of floating in despair and sadness like I could have done, it really just helps Jehovah's promises feel so real to me on a very personal level. It builds my love for Him. It motivates my love to want to be even more enduring than any disease that we may ever face in this system. It also helps my love for others to grow in being considerate and compassionate as to their circumstances. So all in all, whatever circumstances, whatever pain and suffering we may go through, the joy of serving Jehovah, as well as the promises He makes for the future, far outweigh any of that.
Thank you very much. Now, what we'd like to do is hear from Brother Oliveris the same question.
Well, my pressures weren't necessarily external as you deal with at school. They were internal. In 2008, I was diagnosed with a chronic form of depression, which is characterized by occasional euphoric highs and haunting lows, or as it's commonly called, bipolar. With the extreme highs, I was reckless with my money management. Communicating with me was extremely difficult. Nothing made sense. On the other hand, the extreme lows was characterized by terrorizing, disquieting thoughts, and this affected my relationships with others. I then experienced loneliness because my friends didn't understand what was happening and would keep their distance. And this also would lead to social isolation. And so I frequently lashed out at my family and friends and was critical of others. And there was even a time when I lost my faith in Jehovah, Jesus, and the organization. The only remedy to all of this, I thought, was for me to fall asleep in death. But in spite of this affliction, God has always made a way out, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians 10:13. My family and I applied the following principle to my circumstances. Those who are ill need a physician, Luke 5:31. With the assistance of medication and professional counseling, I've learned to cope with my condition. In addition, I'm highly grateful for the faith my mom has demonstrated by continuing to help me come to the meetings, even though I didn't think I would get anything out of them. She didn't, in a sense, want me to break the command, do not forsake our meeting together, as Hebrews 10:25 says. Overall, I realize now that it was only through the application of Bible principles that I've been able to maintain my spirituality. In other words, I have allowed God's Spirit to influence my life so that I can continue to successfully carry my figurative torture state, as well as strive to become an example to the faithful ones.
You know, Brother, before you leave the stage, those were wonderful examples of practical ways to take care of something that afflicts a lot of people. And by the way, these brothers are ministerial servants, and they're both regular pioneers, and they both give public talks. Thank you, brother.